Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Catholic Foundation of Greater Philadelphia's first presentation of our Catholic Leadership Speaker Series. My name is Jody Romano, and I am the Chief Advancement Officer for CFGP, and my co-host today is Deacon Jack Hassan. For those of you who don't know, the Catholic Foundation of Greater Philadelphia is an independent, nonprofit community foundation committed to growing philanthropy according to the teachings of Jesus Christ. Grounded in the principles of faith and service, CFGP meets the diverse needs of donors and Catholic institutions through charitable fund management and development consulting. We are delighted to have such a wonderful turnout for our inaugural Catholic Leadership Speaker Series. With us today are the Chair of the CFGP Board of Trustees, Dick Clark, Board Member Monsignor Beach, and our CEO, Sarah Hanley, along with all of the rest of you who are participating. We are very thrilled and humbled to have the opportunity to bring together Catholic thought leaders, clergy, and lay people. At this time, I'd like to officially begin our event with an opening prayer. We are privileged to also have with us today Bishop Joseph Coffey from the Archdiocese of Military Service, USA, and he is going to lead us in prayer. Bishop, if you could please lead us in prayer.
Sure. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Lord, we ask for your blessings today in this great season of Advent as we spiritually prepare ourselves to celebrate with great joy your birth on Christmas Day. Bless our meeting today as we gather virtually, clergy and lay, with members of the Catholic Foundation of Greater Philadelphia to learn more effective ways to share our resources with our charitable gifts to help the less fortunate. Please bless our speaker, Montse, and her efforts with the Beckett Fund, which fights for religious liberty for all. We ask this in your holy name. Amen. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much, Bishop Coffey. That was a beautiful prayer, and what a lovely way to get us started. Thank you. So to get started, we would like to welcome our speaker, Ms. Montse Alvarado. Montse comes to us from the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, where she has worked since 2009 and was named Vice President and Executive Director in February of 2017. With a background in public policy, she has led initiatives at Becket and has, that have secured 7 Supreme Court religious liberty victories. Montse was profiled by the Wall Street Journal Weekend Edition with the following introduction: a defender of all religion on the front lines of America's cultural wars. She has a degree from George Washington University and Florida International University. Montse is going to give us a presentation, and then we are going to open things up for your questions. You can submit your questions by selecting the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen and then submitting them. And then we will read those questions aloud so everyone can hear them, and Montse will have the opportunity to address them. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Montse and let her take it from there. Thank you, Montse.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be with you, and hello to everyone watching us through webinar. It's a great privilege for me to have a chance to talk to you about the work that I get to do every day, and that I'm sure you worry about every day. So since the beginning of the year, I think for the past 9 months, everything on our minds has been COVID. And I would love to say that that's all that we've been working on, but it's not. Religious liberty kicked off this year with some very big Supreme Court cases and some changes at the Supreme Court, which I'm sure you're all curious about, and I'm more than happy to talk about as well. But I'd like to preface it just saying a little bit about the Becket Fund. We're a nonprofit law firm. We do litigation only that defends religious freedom for all. We were founded by Seamus Hassan, a Catholic attorney, double domer out of Notre Dame, who felt that he was being called to do something for the church. And he saw the writing on the wall 27 years ago when he founded Becket in 1994. Actually, our feast day, December 8th, is when he filed our Articles of Incorporation, and we opened our doors on May 16th. To Marian feasts to really speak to his devotion to our Blessed Mother, even though the Becket Fund is not actually a Catholic institution. We do have Catholic guts, I like to say. Dignitatis Humanae, the encyclical on the dignity of the human person, is our foundational, our groundwork. And our founding, even though we defend people of all faiths and we employ people of all faiths to defend the church, is really based on that concept, that idea that we're all built to search for truth, and that journey where God will find us and we will find him is protected from government intrusion. The government is not allowed to touch what is in our hearts and what is in our minds. And we are to be free to do with that belief what we will. So I like to say that religious liberty isn't just a concept. It's not just something protected in the Constitution. It's something that we are given to use. And it's in discovering what we believe. So for me, discovering my passion and my love for Jesus Christ and our Blessed Mother, it's actually believing in and doing something with that belief that is protected by the Constitution, going out into the world, not checking my religion at the door when I walk into a government building, walk onto a university campus, or walk into my place of business. No, bringing that with me, letting that inspire how I live my life and every moment of my day. So that is the Beckett Fund in a nutshell. We have obviously, a communications department, government affairs, all kinds of pieces. We're 38 people strong, very small, $7 million a year, also very small. But what would you pay for a Supreme Court victory? Probably less than $7 million at a white shoe law firm, I'll tell you that. And what would you pay for 4? Because that's what we've won this year. So I'm here to bring you some good news in a year that's been very rough for a lot of people. And I think rough for our church as well, to give you some Christian hope, not foolish hope, about the future. So let's start really quickly going through what happened this year. We started the year off knowing that with COVID, the Supreme Court was not going to be meeting in person. And we did something remarkable. We had the first ever in the existence of the Supreme Court telephonic arguments where we all called in from our conference lines and argued before the Supreme Court. The Becket Fund had 2 cases. The Little Sisters of the Poor case, it's been going on for about 8 years now. We're still fighting the fines and the contraceptive mandate. The Little Sisters of the Poor case was argued on May 6th. And then we also had another case called Our Lady of Guadalupe. Our Lady of Guadalupe is a case about a school outside of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. It's within the structure of the LA Archdiocese, but it's right outside LA. And they wanted to reaffirm their right to hire and fire teachers who would be passing on the faith to the next generation. So it is the church who chooses the ministers or the teachers or the employees that are going to further the faith and are committed to the faith. And when they're not committed to the mission statement and to the truth of our church, they are allowed not to renew their contracts or not to have them employed within their structures. That is something that won a resounding victory at the Supreme Court in 2009 and did so again this year. So the Little Sisters of the Poor and Our Lady of Guadalupe were huge wins for religious freedom with great impact. You also then had a school choice case out of Montana called Espinoza. Espinoza was a fantastic win for school choice, where a woman who has 2 daughters decided that she wanted to place her girls in a Catholic school because it was a better place for them. It was her choice to put them there so that they wouldn't be bullied at their former school. And she wanted her tax dollars to go to that school so she could pay for that tuition. And she won her case at the Supreme Court. And that gives us an opening to get rid of Blaine amendments. Blaine amendments are these 19th century anti-Catholic inspired amendments that were brought into different state level constitutions as conditions for statehood. A lot of people don't realize that it wasn't necessarily something that was passed by a legislature, but placed in the state constitution as a condition to be a part of our great union. And the Supreme Court decided that that was a no-go this year. Finally, after many years of all of us fighting to get rid of Blaine amendments, we have reaffirmed that discrimination and anti-Catholic bigotry have no place in the United States. So now we need to go around the country and try to knock down the rest of these Blaine amendments now that the Supreme Court has said that they are unconstitutional. There's another case that some people think is a win, and some people say is not a win. I think that it's really important to talk about the Bostock Case, which is this Title VII case that talks about the definition of sex in Title VII. This idea that sex is not defined as just man and woman, but is also defined as sexual orientation and gender identity. For short, people call that SOGI. And in an opinion written by Justice Gorsuch, he did two things. He did say that that definition of sex includes sexual orientation and gender identity, but in doing that, which I know as a Catholic, for me, that's very alarming. I believe in kind of natural law principles, the Robbie George and Marianne Glendon style understanding of humanity and the dignity of the human person and the nature of the human person. But Justice Gorsuch veered from that. But he did turn and do something that I believe is really important. He said in his opinion and in the majority court opinion that RFRA, which is the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, is very important. It's a super statute. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act was passed in 1993 by Congress. It was signed by Bill Clinton. It's a bipartisan initiative that Senator Hatch, who I'm sure all of you know his great history on religious freedom, pioneered through the Senate. And it's an important protection that gave us victories like the Little Sisters of the Poor, like Hobby Lobby, like protecting the right of individuals to minister at prisons. All of those things are protected through this one great statute called RFRA. And there's a federal level RFRA and then different state level RFRAs that all undergird this important protection for religious freedom as something that the government is not allowed to touch unless it's got a really, really good reason. And that's called compelling interest. So by saying that it's a super statute, Justice Gorsuch was basically saying religious freedom comes first. And all of this other sexual identity stuff has to fall underneath it. The calling now for the Supreme Court is going to be to see if that's actually true. And we'll be able to talk about that in a second. The last key, I think, to this past Supreme Court term and this year on religious freedom issues is, in fact, COVID. What is essential? Is worship essential, or are liquor stores and casinos more important? I think if everyone was as frustrated as I was going through Easter without Mass, I cried the first time that I was able to receive the Eucharist again. It was just a very, a moment where I kind of reaffirmed my own commitment to be even closer to the sacraments, because it was a heavy desert. And however, if you look at it on the litigation side, you had bishops who were divided on this. They didn't know how to do. Our church did not necessarily know how to respond. Being the pastoral church that it is, they did not wait for the government to tell them what to do. That's a very important fact. Our churches around the country did not shut down or close or limit worship because the government told them to. In their own sovereign reality, a lot of them willingly ahead of time suspended worship, gave a dispensation, and waited to see what the government was going to do while they developed their own protocol to bring people back to church safely. A lot of the churches around the country developed protocol that has every other pew, sanitation stations, etc., thinking about the reception of communion in a very different way, social distancing, all of those things, and then set their own ways to reopen. So 3 months into the lockdowns and the shelter-in-place orders, the Minnesota and Wisconsin bishops reached out to us at the Beckett Fund and said, we want to reopen, and we think that civil disobedience is in order here if our governors won't give it to us. And we said, let's do this. Let's figure out how to open up safely and at the same time make sure that worship is essential. And it didn't take a lot. It just took a legal letter and some civil disobedience to get that open. But the problem is there was a case that did go up to the Supreme Court before all of these other cases did, a little too early. And that's where that compelling interest thing I said earlier comes into play, where the government said, I do have a really good reason to stop you from gathering people because I don't know enough about this virus, which is the reason that we didn't go up to the Supreme Court straight out of the gate. We kind of waited a little while before we started some of our legal moves. Fast forward to Thanksgiving this year. We know enough about the virus now to know that the liturgy and coming back to church are not super spreader events. They're just not. And the protocol that we've been putting in place, because our church is the way it is, it's pastoral and it wants what's best for us and wants to bring us a sacrament. We know that it works. Our protocol works. And our schools are also safe. So we went ahead and represented the Jewish community in New York and came alongside the Diocese of Brooklyn and got a wonderful order from the Supreme Court at 11:57 p.m. On the eve of Thanksgiving, protecting our Catholic schools, Jewish schools, and synagogues and churches from the order from Governor Cuomo, who I went on TV and called the Big Apple's biggest bigot. My mom was really upset at me for that, but that's okay. Moms are there to make sure we're prudent, but I couldn't be prudent anymore. I was quite upset with him for the way he was treating our church. So that was a huge win, which we're also now starting to see the great fruits of in California, in Kentucky, and in other places in New York. So I will stop there in terms of the past. 3 minutes on the future. What is going to happen next? Now that we know that we have all of these great racked up victories at the Supreme Court, what can we actually do with them? Well, there are two things that are really important to remember. Thing number one is the judiciary project that was embarked on by President Trump. Whatever your feelings are about the Trump administration, they did something remarkable alongside Leonard Leo and Mitch McConnell in getting more judges and justices confirmed than President Obama in 4 years. President Obama had 8 years to do so. They confirmed more judges and flipped the composition of the judiciary in 4 years rather than 8, and have created a longstanding new reality, a new operating reality for anyone who is litigating in our space and trying to protect the church. So that's a very important component of all of this. Component number two is what's going on with the elections. I think that we're all starting to see some of the breakdown of the lawsuits that are before the Supreme Court and other courts, where it might not seem like President Trump is going to be able to overturn what seemed to be the results of the election. And so we'll know more on December 14th and then again on January 6th when all of the votes are counted from the delegates. But if you presume, as we are presuming in terms of preparedness, that there will be a Biden-Harris presidency and administration, this is what you have to look out for. The Equality Act, which gets rid of what I just described as RFRA. It's the number one piece that it gets rid of, these protections for the church and the ability for people to have objections to all kinds of a myriad of procedures and realities that are conflicting with church teaching. The transgender mandate is something that was a last-minute executive order from the Obama administration that forces doctors, hospitals, and counselors to participate in gender transition surgeries, services, and procedures for children as young as 11 years old without parental consent. And then also assisted suicide as a main issue that we're dealing with out of Colorado and 9 other states that have passed laws that make it legal. You could see something come out of the administration that makes it legal at the federal level, which would be quite problematic. The Little Sisters of the Poor and the Affordable Care Act, the cases that never end, is then the fourth piece of that, where you already saw that the HHS secretary would be named as Javier Becerra if he makes it through confirmations, and he went after the Little Sisters really hard in California. I was out there with them when we had their hearing at the Ninth Circuit in the case that we won at the Supreme Court. But he is unrelenting in his pursuit of the right version of Catholicism as a baptized Catholic himself. I'm gonna leave that there. I think I'm gonna stop right here in terms of what we have in the past and what we have in the future, and let you ask some questions about just religious freedom, where we are and where we're going. But again, I want to reinforce that I'm really hopeful. I think that we have the right team and the right composition of different organizations that are fighting for religious freedom if we're willing to stand up for it.
Yes, Montse, we have 2 questions. Mr. and Mrs. James Wilson ask, how can parishioners get pastors to speak or distribute profile and election information unless it comes from the bishop?
I would say that I mean, parishioners are allowed to distribute pro-life information on their own. That there's nothing that says that you're not allowed to do that. In terms of asking the bishops to do so, I think that's more of a prerogative for your pastor. So your parish is allowed to make those decisions. There's no reason that you wouldn't be able to speak or distribute pro-life information. Election information, again, I believe that has to come through the local party or is regulated through your local party. So that's a question for your local election officials. But in terms of speaking about, pro-life opportunities or opportunities to talk about the life issue, there are a lot of kind of moments in the liturgical year where we're asked to talk about them, and where we, could distribute information about that. So I'm happy to have a one-on-one conversation about how to create a strategy around that locally, if that's helpful.
Okay. How could the Lincoln proposal be used to overturn Roe? It defines unborn as a person under the 14th Amendment.
The Roe question is a really good one. I think that a lot of people believe that getting another justice on the court would automatically allow us to overturn Roe. Overturning Roe has to be coupled with overturning Casey. There are actually two Supreme Court decisions that come up side by side that address the life issue and the right to an abortion, right? Defining personhood, so giving the person in the womb personhood through the 14th Amendment is a wonderful thing that I would love to see happen, but is going to take quite a bit of time. I know there are a couple of groups that are developing some strategies to be able to litigate around that, but it's not going to be a forward-facing challenge. It's not going to be a one and done. We saw a couple of challenges come up through Louisiana where we wanted the court to do a little bit more on the life issue, and they just didn't go there because they are still handcuffed by what exists in Roe and Casey. And you don't have an activist court right now. You don't have a court that is going to do something that is a stretch beyond what's actually in the paperwork of the case. So we have to look for litigation that gets around some of these issues. My hope is that we will see cases like that of birth mothers who want parental rights for the fathers, or disabled children who need certain care and can only ask for it, or insurance companies will only be able to give it to them if they are redefined as having personhood themselves. So there are a lot of very different strategies that we'll see and ways that we can come at Roe and Casey. But if we learned anything from this Supreme Court, it's that you have to chip away at things little by little. The Espinoza win happened after 5 other cases came up to the Supreme Court and gave you little pieces of a victory. The same thing with Our Lady of Guadalupe. We actually had 2 cases before that case that redefined what the ministerial exception actually was in protecting the church and the church's autonomy from the government. So I think you're going to see a big resurgence of cases before you actually have the big win that overturns Roe and Casey. I hope that's helpful.
Mr. Robert Wingarter asks, what are your thoughts on the recent Supreme Court decisions?
Which ones?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
I spoke a little bit about the one from out of New York on religious liberty issues. Is it the one that maybe he's talking about the political ones?
I don't know.
And I don't really do election law, but I can say that I know a lot of people who were quite disappointed in that. I don't really have, give an opinion from the Beckett Fund on those things.
All right. Well, maybe I'll ask again to clarify. So,
sure.
But he asks again, the Supreme Court this week declined to hear an appeal against an Oregon school district's policy allowing students to use the restroom and locker room corresponding to their gender identity.
The restroom issue is a really tricky one. because you don't really have a lot of other reasons or other, reasons why a student would be allowed to use a different restroom. A lot of the time when you look at religious exemptions for why you don't want to do something or why you don't need to do something or shouldn't do something, you can use the examples of, well, you're making exemptions for other reasons. Bathrooms as public accommodations are really tricky to sue under. We have not had a restrooms case. We actually try to avoid the issue by making sure that a school has autonomy from the government, so its own way of regulating these issues, maybe giving that student access to a different bathroom so they don't have to redefine the boys and girls bathrooms, or give that student access to a bathroom that doesn't correspond with their sex or gender. I would say that I'm sure that a lot of you are on the boards of different schools. I would encourage you to make sure that that is a policy or something that is in place or that has been thought about before a lawsuit comes. A lot of the time we wait to have a challenge to answer these questions, and that's the wrong strategy. You have to think through what kind of accommodations you want to have in place and how you want to both accompany this student who is obviously suffering, but at the same time, not compromise the identity of what you believe and your teachings for the rest of the students, because public witness really does matter for them, especially in this, this moment where they're so young and so impressionable.
A case that's very close to our heart here in Philadelphia, and I know some of the Catholic social service people are possibly on the call. Barbara Sheehan asks, what about the Philadelphia case involving LGBT foster parents? What do you expect as a result?
That's my favorite case. We just argued that in November. Lori Wyndham on our team was the one who argued it. We did it telephonically, and I'm happy to send you a little video of her doing this. We expect a big win. That's the short answer. We expect a really big win. Sharon L. Fulton and Tony Sims Bush, super courageous women who are single women of color. So anyone who says that they're bigoted, I was in court with Sharon L. in the lower courts, sitting next to her when the lawyer for the ACLU was talking about discrimination and these couples who have 29 other agencies that they can go to, but they want to force the Catholic Church to affirm their relationship. And she looked at me and said, what does she know about discrimination? I know what it's like to have to use a different water fountain from someone else. What does she know? And I thought that was really telling about this issue and how confusing the media has made it for people, when one thing is discriminating against someone and another thing is trying to find the best fit for them. The Catholic Church is not the best fit for a couple in a relationship that they cannot affirm and that they don't understand. A home study, which is what this is a fight over, we're fighting over certifying couples, certifying their relationship. When you do a home study for someone, you are going into the deep, intimate parts of their relationship and saying that they're A-okay for a child to go there. The Catholic Church doesn't believe that, and no one expects the Catholic Church to believe that. And the Supreme Court said that and was really clear about that. And Justice Barrett and a couple of other justices, Justice Kagan, Justice Breyer, kept pressing the other side. They kept pressing the city's lawyer and the ACLU's lawyer for why they wanted to force the church to change its religious beliefs. There's a big difference between changing a policy and changing your religious beliefs and the mission that inspired you to want to do this good work. So very excited to see a big win, and we'll see what kind of a win will be possible. And that'll come out at the end of July, probably.
Bishop Coffey is asked, well, it's a question and a statement. How can we clone you, Montse? And we are so super proud of you and thankful for all of your hard work at the Becket Fund.
Well, I'm grateful for you, Bishop, because I know that what you do is even harder than what I do, is laying your life down for the church. And I have to say that we do have an internship program and a fellowship program. So I hope to find people who are smarter and faster and better than I am.
This goes back, this is again from Mr. and Mrs. James Wilson, and it's probably something to do with one of the answers to the questions you gave a little bit earlier.
Okay.
How about an executive order? I'm not quite sure what.
An executive order on life issue, possibly? That would be, I mean, there are a lot of creative ways to do that. You can have an executive order that gives someone, I guess, the right to sue when their rights are violated. That's the issue, is it's not a positive right, it's a negative right. I'd have to think about that, but I do know, I will say that is something that has been thought about before. And the issue with executive orders is they're not sticky enough. It's very easy to overturn them. It's very easy to get a nationwide injunction against them. So to get one court, that's the thing with nationwide injunctions. One court can make a decision for the entire country. So you expend a lot of energy in getting the right executive order, and then it's not actually enforceable. So it's more a messaging tool than it is anything else.
Okay. Father Dennis Weber has asked, I still have some confusion about the contraceptive mandate. I've seen it written that President Biden will reimpose the contraceptive mandate through an executive order. Is this true? And do religious entities still have to comply with the contraceptive mandate?
So yes, it's true. This was part of the policy and platform that was released by the Biden-Harris campaign. Their decision to double down on the individual mandate and the contraceptive mandate, right? So forcing all kinds of businesses, anyone who has 50 employees and up, whether you're a religious ministry, a nonprofit, or a business, to cover abortion-causing drugs and services in their employee healthcare plans. They said we're going to go after the Little Sisters of the Poor, and they also said we want to go after Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby is a case that we won in 2014 that gave an exemption to businesses that are family-owned and have religious foundations to them. There are not that many businesses. A lot of people like to use the slippery slope argument, saying that if we give this to you, we're going to have exemptions for a bunch of other businesses. If they haven't sued already, they would fail the sincerity test from the courts. Because if you haven't raised your hand already, you're not going to be able to sue. What took you so long? Why didn't you sue when you had the opportunity 6 years ago? So that argument is failed, I guess, legal thinking, but also kind of social thinking to scaremonger people into thinking that they're not going to have access to drugs and services that they want to have access to. It is a real threat. An executive order is something that could be done. More likely, they could just, through HHS, change the rule and get rid of that exemption and force us back into court. Hopefully, we won't have to do that. But if we do, we know that we have a Supreme Court that is even better than the one that originally gave the Little Sisters of the Poor their protection. So the original protection actually came from a midnight emergency protection from Justice Sotomayor. So imagine what kind of protection we can get in a world where there is a Justice Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. I cannot imagine that they would allow for religious freedom to be undermined in that way.
Mark Bradford asks, we are a network of independent Catholic classical academies. How can we best protect ourselves from the Equality Act and its implication for our schools? Presumably, SOGI will be required in non-discriminatory statements and policies becoming a requirement for receiving state tax money through our state EITC program. We were relieved at the court's decision in Espinoza, but now wondering what may be coming to us if we lose access to this tax credit.
So you've got two questions in one here. One about these sexual orientation and gender identity, that's the SOGI stuff, and non-discrimination regulations versus the tax credit stuff. So let me just parse those out. This isn't legal advice. It's just suggestions. It's important to remember that your mission statement when you are part of a classical school or any kind of religious school, tying yourself to a religious mission is the most important thing that you can do. If that's really what you are, you should be what you are. Making sure that everyone who comes to the school, signs up for the school, and works at the school is aware that those are the values that you espouse and that you hope to promote. That is, I cannot stress enough how important it is to do that now, yesterday, in your articles of incorporation, on your website, in your mission statement, in your employee handbook. That is the only way that you will be able to have any protection from what might come your way in terms of non-discrimination things from the city, et cetera. I would also say that it's important for you to have an analysis of your, threats and weaknesses by your legal team. You should already know who you want to speak to and who your general counsel should be discussing these issues with. I'm happy to suggest that the Beckett Fund is a great place. The Napa Legal Institute also has a lot of resources that allow you to make sure that you're protected. So that's piece number one. An immediate audit of those policies is very important. On the tax credit stuff, Espinoza did change the game for you. So it depends on how that program is, your EECIT, I believe is what he called it, that tax credits program. It depends how it's set up. So if they are giving the opportunity for everybody else to participate in that program, and it's just the religious schools that would be in trouble, absolutely you have protection under Espinoza, and you should consider reaching out to your local legislators through your Catholic conference. They would probably be able to help you. And if not, then considering a lawsuit that allows you to reassert those rights. And again, I would ask that you reach out to Napa Legal, or there's another great attorney. His name is Eric Kniffen out of Colorado with Lua Rocca Rothgerber. And I'm happy to send that information, Deacon Hassan, to you that you can share with everyone else on this call as referrals for places that will very gladly do a quick review of your situation and let you know what your avenues are for protection, because the game has changed. And everyone who says that money comes with strings isn't necessarily right anymore. They used to be right. When you take government money, you're going to have all of these strings for non-discrimination, et cetera. Church autonomy has been reasserted at the Supreme Court through Our Lady, and also school autonomy has been, and school access to government funds for religious schools has been reaffirmed through Espinoza as well. So I would just say that the landscape has changed, and it's important to do that analysis.
Hi, Montse. Dave and Kim Savage here.
I love you guys.
Thank you for all your great work. We are concerned about Becerra's nomination for sure. Can you give us your perspective on his chances and also why he would be so bad? Thanks.
Sure. So Xavier Becerra is the Attorney General of California, and he is the nominee for Health and Human Services for the Biden-Harris administration. And he is just, he's problematic because of what I mentioned earlier about the HHS mandate cases. So there is a case currently right now called Little Sisters of the Poor versus Becerra, because he is the one suing them to take away not just their religious exemption from the contraceptive mandate, but he wants to make all religious exemptions unconstitutional. What does that mean? We have religious exemptions for all kinds of things, where doctors right now don't have to participate in assisted suicide, where students in a public school where they're learning about counseling don't have to counsel couples whose relationships they disagree with. Consider all sorts of scenarios that would be problematic, where you would need an accommodation or an exemption, and where you've had one for a very long time. Even the Fulton case, that is a religious exemption from a rule that was made that would nullify their religious beliefs. If you get rid of all of that and you have someone in office whose sole purpose for the past 4 years has been to claim that he's going to get rid of religious exemptions, that's not just problematic for us as believers. I think it's problematic for the government as well in misunderstanding its role and what the Constitution actually stands for.
Robert Bauer asks, what is happening with municipalities building nativity scenes? Are they permitted?
Absolutely, they're permitted. I think it's, especially now, it's important for us to do the things that make us feel like things are has not changed as much as they normally have. There was a Gallup survey today that came out on the emotional and psychological health of Americans, where they're claiming that even though they feel physically healthy, they are not as emotionally and psychologically healthy as they used to be. The only difference there is churchgoers didn't take that hit as much. Churchgoers have maintained similar trends as in past years in terms of their emotional and mental health. And I would attribute it to traditions like that, traditions that show us that the church is still alive, that there is something greater than what we have here on earth, and that our sacrifices are worthwhile. So I would encourage you and everyone to put out a creche and a nativity, to talk to your city council about what it looks like to have a holiday display this year, and how to wish people Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, etc.
Mr. and Mrs. James Wilson again ask, does the Beckett group work with Thomas More and David Daleiden?
Daleiden, yeah. So Thomas More, we love Thomas More. Thomas More is I would say, in our operating space. They do different cases than we do, even though they do overlap on religious liberty work. They had a great case about buffer zones that unfortunately the Seventh Circuit didn't take up, but it would have been a great opportunity to reaffirm something that we won in 2014, getting rid of restrictions outside of abortion clinics for people to pray and counsel, sidewalk counselors to be there. So they do fantastic work. And I think David Daleiden is a warrior. I would attribute that a lot of the pro-life policies that you're seeing out of the government now, both at the state level and the federal level, have much to do with his courage in, doing the undercover work that was necessary to show what Planned Parenthood was actually doing with the government funds.
This is an anonymous question. Does the Beckett Fund have any opinion about politicians such as Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi saying that they are practicing Catholic, but who strongly support abortion?
The Beckett Fund does not. I think that is we don't take positions on church issues or on culture war issues. Obviously, we defend the church and their right to defend life, but the Beckett Fund doesn't actually take a position on life and marriage, even though we defend, the Archdiocese of Philadelphia's right to believe in traditional marriage and marriage between a man and a woman. As a confessional Catholic, I have a problem, with Catholics who are not willing to speak the truth about life and marriage. I think that that's really important, especially in public policy, to just be clear about what you believe and what the church teaches. And if you're not willing to say, well, the church teaches this, even though I'm not standing up for it, I think even that kind of an admission would be an improvement on what we have right now. But organizationally, we don't take a position on those things, even though we hope that religious institutions will. And we'd be happy to defend them for doing so.
John Delaney is asking, if Roe and Casey are overturned, what challenges do you see coming thereafter?
State level challenges. So if you overturn Roe and Casey, then your right to an abortion becomes a state level issue. So if you think about a state like Michigan, Michigan doesn't actually have a right to abortion right now. So they wouldn't have to do anything. They would just be able to shut down Planned Parenthood immediately. Places like California that have state level mandates for abortion and state level funding that goes to abortion and all of that would be in a different position where additional litigation would be necessary. So it's a little bit like marriage, where Obergefell created a right to marry for civil unions within the government, not sacramental marriages, right? Because churches do not have to perform these marriages. But that had to then be dispersed around the country at the state level, which is why you had all of these conflicts about clerks and different individuals who work for the city or work for the government that wanted accommodations or objected to providing these services.
Mr. James Coffey is asking, Montse, when possible, please share more information about the internship program so we can share it and how people can support this. Thanks.
Absolutely, Jim. It's great. I can't see you, but it's good to see a question from you. Yes, we have a summer internship program that is 10 weeks long, and it's on our website, and the applications are actually open right now. And we have both an undergraduate program that I'm very grateful to be the head of, and we talk to students about government affairs, communications, and the operational aspect of things too, because we hope to have people to go out and run businesses in the future, not always working in ministry, but bringing their religious beliefs into the business world. So there's an undergraduate program, and we also have a legal program where we train the next generation of religious liberty lawyers who are in law school right now, and also give them the opportunity to apply for legal clinics, which are like residencies at medical schools, but at law schools. And we have programs right now at Yale, Harvard, and Stanford. And we're hoping that we'll be able to help the students at Chicago open one there as well. So the leading institutions for the law, which are also the funnels for clerks, for judges and justices at the Supreme Court, and hopefully the next generation of those judges will be able to have that foundation about religious liberty and do great things. So that's our undergraduate program, our legal program for the summer. And then we also have a 1-year fellowship for attorneys who are post-clerkship. A lot of attorneys go and clerk for judges. Once they do that, we give them a year at the Beckett Fund before they go on to their big law firm job or to work for the government, to give them experience in doing appellate defense of religious liberty the way that we do. So 3 great programs that train the next generation, and they're all on our website at beckettlaw.org.
Well, that's the end of our questions. They're all great questions, and I thank you for taking the time to answer them.
Of course, of course. I think it's wonderful, and I hope that, you know, some of the questions had a lot to do with, are we allowed to do this? Are we allowed to do that? The one thing I hope that everyone on the call realizes is that we've gagged ourselves. We've effectively taken on the culture war to mean that we're not allowed to talk about our faith, that we're not allowed to be religious people when we are. There's no Supreme Court case, there's no law that says that you're not allowed to talk about religion at the workplace or what you believe on the street and the, you know, in the shopping center. Nothing like that exists. But we've decided culturally that these are issues that we're not allowed to talk about. But I can't imagine knowing that someone needs to hear the compassionate and loving message of Jesus Christ and his Blessed Mother, and not sharing it with them. So I would just encourage everyone to please think about those opportunities and how to share the love of God, especially on this feast day of Juan Diego, when we think about our Blessed Mother and how she revealed herself to the least of us, right? Those who were marginalized, those who were not, I'm Mexican, so it's very personal for me. Those who were not in power, she wants us to bring people to her son. And so I hope that we'll all kind of take that into our personal lives and into our work lives as well, and remember that we're the ones who have gagged ourselves and who've decided not to talk about these things. And the government isn't doing that right now. It might do that in the future if we don't take advantage of our religious freedom.
Okay.
Well, Jody, could I have just a minute? There's a couple more questions that came in if we have time, if Montse is.
Sure. I'm happy to do that.
Are there any cases related to refusals to participate in the death penalty execution in any way?
Yes, there are definitely cases like that, although you will see less and less of them because there is an exemption for nurses and doctors who are part of executions not to have to be a part of them. It's actually a comparison that we make for our assisted suicide cases. So we have a case called Censura where we're defending a religious hospital network. It's a partnership between the Catholic Church and the Seventh-day Adventist Church that has a religious mission, and they don't want to do anything associated with assisted suicide. So they don't want to promote death in their hospitals, and they're being forced to do so by a Colorado law that doesn't have any exemptions. And so we have a lawsuit with them, and we make that comparison. If you don't force people to work in the execution chamber, why would you force people to bring the execution chamber into the hospital, right? So it's a great question and a great comparison that we plan to use in the future.
You speak about the Equality Act and transgender actions by President Biden, which I assume have to be legislated by Congress. Can you comment on this in light of the possibility that there will be a Democratic House and a Republican Senate?
Absolutely. The Equality Act has different versions floating out there. So there is a version that passed the House and was blocked by the Senate. I think that you're going to see the Equality Act used much more as a messaging bill that then gets taken up by the different agencies in the administration. So you would see different pieces of that proliferated by Housing and Urban Development, Health and Human Services, all of the agencies that belong to the administration and will have Democrat appointees. So it's the Equality Act with a Senate majority will be kind of held back from passage, but the actual action items that come with the Equality Act could be proliferated in different agencies in the government.
Please repeat the name of the attorney in Colorado recommended to conduct audits of handbooks, etc.
Sure,
Many
of
thanks
course.
for an outstanding presentation.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. His name is Eric Kniffin. It's got a silent K, Kniffin, and he's with Lewis Rocca Rothgerber Christie in Colorado. And I'm more than happy to send over his contact information. Eric is a Beckett Fund alumni. He left the Beckett Fund to go work for this big firm and moved to Colorado. We're based in DC, but he continues to do wonderful religious liberty work. And the other place is the Napa Legal Institute. They have a lot of resources on their website. I believe it's nli.org. But if you Google Napa Legal Institute, they have their website pops up, and Josh Holden-Reed is their executive director. And they have a lot of wonderful resources that will help you do that audit as well.
Next question, how do you decide which cases to accept?
It's a fantastic question.
Right.
So I wish the Beckett Fund had like 500 people, but it doesn't. It actually only has 17 attorneys, and we do all of our work in-house. So we don't partner with other law firms. We are the law firm. And we have to be very choosy because of that. So we have a team called the Case Evaluation Team. Seems pretty logical, where we evaluate cases based on 3 important things. One, is this case going to make good law? Is this an opportunity to change the law or to further something that we already believe? Does this case, the second piece is, does it have good facts? Is the lower record going to be one that is going to be good for judges to look at and doesn't have kind of, messiness within it, because we are appealing these cases? And the third one is this case good for religious liberty? Does this case further the truth and the beauty and the goodness that comes with wanting to defend this important right? Or am I going to be doing something that, even though I do something good in the law, is going to be bad for the public discourse about religious freedom? That's actually a really important part of our mission, is not just to change the law, but to make sure that people understand that religious freedom isn't a sword, but a door. It's that opening that allows you to, find truth and find out what truth is for you, and take that invitation from the church, hopefully, but sometimes it takes you elsewhere. And that's our job as lay people. But that's the lens by which we look at that. We get a lot of requests. We can't take every case. We have anywhere from 30 to 60 cases that we have ongoing at the same time. As you saw, we had 4 Supreme Court cases this year, so it's busy. And there isn't a dearth of things that we want to take on, but we can't take everything on, which is why we have so many partners that we refer to that do take on a lot of the local and trial level cases that are going to eventually come up to the Supreme Court.
All right, thank you. That's the end of our questions, and we'll close with that process right now. Thank you, Montse.
Of course. Jack, I don't know if you want to close with a prayer or just say.
Well, sure, we could. We'll do a very short one. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Amen.
In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Jody, I think, was going to close, but it looks as if we may have lost her. I'm not sure.
Oh, no, I apologize.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I'm here. We had a little technical glitch there, but Montse, thank you so much for this excellent presentation. And thank you all for attending and for your extremely thoughtful questions. Everyone will be notified about our next speaker in this new series for us, and we hope to have you join us then. So from everyone here at CFGP, we hope you all have a very blessed and Merry Christmas and a very happy and healthy New Year.
Thank you so much,
all.
Jody.
Take care. Thank you, Montse.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.